I would argue, I would argue, Jake, I would have uh, two slices of bacon would have been better,
Oh no, I agree, and I've been trying to stay away
and
from
no toast.
No, I agree. It was just a situation where I was running around, but where my point is that I am counting my calories now. So that was my real point. But yeah,
That's controversial. Hey, look who it is. It's Chris. He's back with us. Chris, our brother. We're talking today about a podcast, and not in general. We're being very specific. A particular podcast called My First Million, and we're reviewing a podcast with the title Ozempic and Failed Churches. It's a very, different type of topic podcast where these two, I would say, investors, and you could talk more about this, Chris, because we're going to talk about a particular segment in the podcast related to education, which is our specialty. And so before we review that segment in the podcast episode, what do we know? What do you know about these men who are discussing these topics? And what do they? You're the one who told us, or you're the one who kind of included us in that podcast. Who are these guys?
Well, this is it's called the My First Million, and it's a podcast that you can find on any of the big avenues like YouTube and Spotify. Mm-hmm. And one of the guys, his name is Samir, and the other is Sean. Samir is an Indian tech. I think he would call himself an Indian tech millionaire, and Sean is more of a, I think. Well, they both created these podcasts as well as online magazine, basically. Okay, now the name of it is going to come to me. This Morning Brew is where they, one of them. And so anyway, they've made big time millions. Okay, and we're talking, I would say, from what I could tell, 10, 20, 30 million dollars. And so now they're successful, and now they're giving away gold nuggets. They're just handing them out to the audience. They have this huge following from their various avenues, including their podcast now. And so they basically almost every day, like at least 3 or 4 times a week, they will give out gold nuggets. And one of the gold nuggets is what we're going to talk about. Nuggets are just ideas. They'll talk about laundromats. They'll talk about the digital assets. They'll talk about Bitcoin. They'll talk about whatever, but it's just giving you ideas on how to build a business.
That's great. Okay. Before you go on, Ruben, before you start, I do want to thank you, Chris, for bringing this to us, and the audience know sometimes Ruben and I we discuss articles in the newspaper or on the internet, and a lot of times it's Chris who brings it to us. So we want to thank you for that too, Chris. But go ahead, Ruben. I'm sorry.
You mean this whole time you haven't been giving me credit? Finally, now I'm getting credit.
Yes,
I thought. Oh, thank you very much. Finally. All right, Ruben. What were you?
Well, I would say. Deduce from what you said, these are investors who are here now to give advice on best strategies to make money. And so in this particular episode, Ozempic, like I said, failed church. By the way, the failed churches segment was interesting, but this idea at one point, they talk about a private school in San Francisco named Hamlin. So Hamlin is I believe a K-8, maybe something like that, all girls. And the reason why he's brought it to the attention of the Spotify listeners that follow this program is that they charge. Oh boy, do they charge a university type of tuition. I guess I'll just open with that and just ask either of you, what were your impressions? I have a few notes here, but what are your thoughts here about this idea of this school and maybe the ramifications of that?
Can I set it up even a little bit more, Ruben? Because the reason he brought this up is because I know this is a little controversial now, and we don't have to go too deep into it, but basically there's a San Francisco school that is, as they said, over the top woke, where their third graders and second graders. Is this too uncomfortable, by the way, for you guys?
See, Chris, I was hoping I don't want to say too much. I was hoping you would be the one to draw that out.
Get canceled.
Yes. You
Yes.
get in trouble, not us.
Yeah, thank you, Chris.
Go
Keep
on.
going.
Are willing to be canceled and they were willing to put themselves on the line, then I'd be willing to at least bring it up. Their point to this business, and by the way, once again, this is a business podcast and they're talking about education in this little segment of it, is their point was, and we should probably put the link, Ruben, I don't know if you guys do that, the link of the podcast. It's somewhere in the middle. You can even put that where they're what minute it is.
Minute 25.
Yeah, about minute 25. So the point is that this school that they know of in San Francisco is so woke, or so, I guess the word diversity, that their kids, a lot of these kids are dealing with issues in 3rd and 4th grade. This is definitely a K through something, K through 7th or 8th. It might go all the way to 12th grade, but the little ones are dealing with issues such as their friends being binary or non-binary, or their gender, or other issues like this in society that we're all dealing with. Okay, so their point is coming from that. And once again, these guys are, it's a very popular podcast. It's a very, mainstream podcast that they're, talking to parents. We don't want our kids to discuss this stuff. Not that they're against it or for it. Their point isn't that they're against it or for it, but simply that maybe they would like to discuss, they would want their kids to focus on maybe the STEM subjects, maybe math and reading, maybe science, and things like that. Other than technology, of course. So why do we want to include these other subjects? I think that's the main point of why this came about.
And I would also say that one of the two who introduced this topic, this idea that you're mentioning, is that he said these friends of mine are of the left. These are not conservatives, and that it's not a matter of the idea of transgender that bothers them. Is that it's the time frame in which you're introducing it to my child. I'm a little bit uncomfortable with. It's too soon for my child, and so as a result, I might look for something different. And so that was one of the questions, right, Jake? Is that if I were to start a private school in this area, say in San Francisco, would I change the price point? What is your biggest gripe?
Right.
And $45,000, and this was it. This was their biggest gripe. Isn't that interesting?
That is interesting, and it's I've done a little research on the schools in San Francisco. There's families are leaving Frisco area. Okay, so the schools are there's not a lot of kids there, and the kids that they have there are a lot of them are upper class, and so that's where they put them in a private school like this to get away from the woke doctrine. And but this is really a financial episode. I mean, this is a podcast that is dealing with, hey, it wouldn't be a great idea to start a school that threw out the woke, right, and just taught math, English, science, history, and what would that look like? And they were saying, hey, it's going to be lucrative financially. And you were saying, Chris, I think or maybe it was Ruben who said, hey, these are not guys who are to the right, these guys are just want to make some money here. And they're saying that, woke is not too attractive to parents who have elementary school students.
Well, I was going to say, no. The podcaster, the host, said his friends who are parents are not conservative.
Oh,
they're on the left.
Okay.
Yeah, but the host, I don't know what political persuasion they are. They're just trying to make money. They're just giving advice, investor advice.
Their focus 100% is to give ideas to themselves, to curate ideas for themselves as well, to each other, and then also to the audience. And they throw out these ideas, not always winners, by the way. They'll tell each other, no, that's a horrible idea, that's a great idea, whatever. They might give 3, 4, 5 ideas in an episode or more. I think they even have one podcast that's like drunk ideas, and they just come up with crazy ideas. This idea they both like because it was very lucrative. This particular school was charging
$40,000. I think it was $40,000, Chris.
45. Yeah, 40,000. Yes.
Per year.
Per year. Yes.
So in in prepping for this episode that you guys invited me to come on, I last night looked up the top private schools in LA just to see what the prices were. Had no idea. I was thinking $20,000 to $30,000 was top, but what I found was 45 was probably the average of the top, let's say 10 or 15 schools that I looked at, and it went all the way up to 60,000, maybe 58 or something like that. So the average, there was a lot of schools in the 48, 50,000, and the ratio of student to teacher, which is important in this case, because that's what where most of your money is going to go. Not all, but most, was 1-7 or 1-8. So you're talking about $200,000 of income per mini classroom, if you want to ratio it out that way. So if you're paying your teacher 100 grand, 125,000, then you have a lot left over for everything else. There's a lot of money. Bottom line is, their point was there's a lot of money. And one last thought on the money part is, a lot of these parents are donating millions to the
upgrade of the school, right? The
upkeep, property, buying property, basically like a college would do. Okay, like you would ask your alumni to do. Instead of this, you have these really obviously wealthy parents able to do this. So anyway, very, very interesting as far as the financial aspect of it.
I actually think the most controversial thing he said at one point, I'm getting the names, Sam and Sean, something like that.
Sean and Samir, yeah.
Sean and Samir. Sean, I think, asked Samir, or said to Samir, now the only qualifier I would say is you have to be very engaged in this topic. You have to really care about this. And Samir said, nah, I don't think so. That's debatable, he said.
You don't have to be an educator.
I found that fascinating because, yes, you don't have to be an educator either. That's fascinating because I know people who would be horrified. I wasn't. I mean, we do an education podcast. Who they would be horrified at the thought of somebody coming in who is just looking at this as an investment opportunity, because education is put on this pedestal like it's like the holy writ, like, you know, exposed to Moses himself, and you can't mess with it from outsiders. But come on, let's face it, Harvard has
can't mess with public education.
Harvard, I'm sorry, go ahead. What were you saying?
No, I was saying you just can't mess with public education, to go with what you were saying. That's what I think, that's what people don't want to do, right?
Well, I mean, and no, any education. What I mean by that, I'll give you an example. I used to work at a charter school, and every person on that board, now I'm just going to say it, they're all part of the left. And I'm just saying, it's probably a typical kind of thing in LA where it's a board in education, and they're very interested in this topic, and they're very concerned. And so the idea that somebody would come in who might not be has ever been engaged in this might be offensive to them. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. Good point.
Well, I mean, and once again, to bring it back to what they were saying, is that literally this was very profitable, like about 30 to 33% of profit every year. They bring in something like 33 million, have left over profit about 11 million, something like that. And so if you're hitting 15 to 20%, that's a great business to look at. And you're doing 30% in your in education. Why wouldn't someone that was great at business run a school and find great educators that love it?
And Chris, the reason why they're making the money, so the audience knows, because they're being successful. The kids are learning. The kids are passing the tests. The kids are doing very well. And because a lot of it has to do with the few students per teacher, right? But also has to do with the type of people, like you were saying right now, people you hire, the educators to teach these children. You're going to get good people, and right?
You're talking about, well, to your point about students passing the tests, you're saying, like state tests, is that what you're saying? Now, to be fair, somebody who's watching this, a critic might say, well, of course they are. These are wealthy, well-to-do, you know, these are higher achieving, and okay. But still, nobody can argue that teacher-student ratio, 6-1 in Hamlin.
Can't beat that. That's amazing. When was the last time you had 6 in a classroom, Ruben? That was a typical classroom, not a, right, not sped. I mean, never, right?
No, it doesn't exist.
Now, can I ask you a question though, Ruben? Is there any time in the episode and that you felt like, you know what? Why am I not doing this?
No, I'm ahead of you. Right. I'm one step ahead of you.
You usually are. Usually are.
I did my research on how to start a private school. Are you guys ready?
Yes, please.
Do you think it's difficult? What do you think, Chris? Red tape?
Well, not only the red tape, you got to get California. There's a lot of red tape with California, but on top of that, and you've got to have that foundation of cash. You probably have to have, for one of those kind of schools, you probably have to have $15 to $20 million because you got to buy the property. Oh, maybe you could do it with less if you find distressed property, but I don't know. It would be a chunk of change.
Well, now you're bringing money, financials for sure. Now let me just say this before I explain what you have to do, because it's very quick. Leaving aside the business side of it, because it's like any other business in terms of knowing your demographic, business plan, marketing your school. I'm gonna leave that aside for the moment and just talk about the educational side. It is very easy. I was very surprised. Listen to this. Did you know that private school teachers do not have to have, they just have to be capable of teaching? Point number one. Did I mention anything about a credential?
How about a degree?
Capable of
teaching. So. Yeah, I don't think so.
Teaching. Capable of teaching. Yes. Second thing, names and addresses of faculty must be kept on file, as is a record of educational qualifications of each instructor. Educational qualifications. There's no specification of what that means. Number three, so far so good, right? Number three, instruction must be in English. An instruction must include for K through 8, math, science, English, PE, and history. And then in 9th through 12th, all the previous plus foreign language, voc ed, and driver's ed. And it's a wrap. Oh, and one more thing. And this is what I think was going to be the red tape. Something called an affidavit. You have to have a filled out affidavit with the school superintendent, with the superintendent. So I looked that up, and I thought I was planning, to show you like a document of what it looked like, but there really is none. You have to just fill it out online, and the CDE it's right on there. The Department of Education. You just click on it, and I started to fill it out, and here it is. Here's the first step. It's just a bunch of words, and you just type in next. When you want to say full-time private school, proceed with the affidavit, next, and then you just follow the prompts, and it looks real. I wish I could show you the screen that I exited out of, but it's just questions about the name of the school, and very simple questions. Now, I didn't go to the next page, but it doesn't look like much.
And this episode, by the way, also gave you ideas on how to name the school, which I think was fantastic. And if you look at all the names of these private schools, he was dead on. By the way, you're throwing that practically in my face. I feel stupid because you're right. All you probably really need is a group of believers, people that want to go to the school. You don't even need all their money. You just need a place, and it could be online. Sounds like it could be online. So you could probably start with very little. And
I wonder, because you mentioned a very something that I didn't think about. You said, well, you need let's start off with $20 million. $20 million. Yeah, that's true. I forgot about that. But then I wonder how many of these private schools started humbly like that. Started humbly without all that cash. I don't know. Maybe none of them. Maybe a few.
Maybe renting a building. Maybe you know what I'm saying. Having smaller, maybe like 4 or 5 classes only. Things like that.
Right. Well, we've worked for a school where a lot of the buildings we worked at in the past were donated or leased out for $1 a year. So when you have a group of people that believe in something, and this is what we're talking about, right? This episode came about because they realized they want these K through, let's say, sixth grade. They want them to focus on more of the academics, less on the social issues. And so if you have a group of parents that believe in that, why wouldn't some of those parents maybe have some property or something like that? So
good point.
I do want to point something out. I don't know if you could see it. I do have it here. I don't know if it could be seen. Can you see
Maybe
that,
we could
Jake?
put a link on the thing too, Ruben, on this episode.
Do you see that page?
Yeah.
Is that our application to we're going to start a school today? Is this
Exactly.
Wow.
Look, that's exactly it. And look how simple the questions are. Do you provide special education services? Name of the school? Where's the district? And then you just follow the prompts. And so yeah, I think you're right, Chris. It takes a vision. It takes even though Samir or Sean, I don't know, said you don't have to be that engaged with the topic. I think it helps to really care about it. I think it helps to drive passion. So onward and upward to our next $30 million in the bank.
There you go. And like you said, our next, like we already have 20 million in the bank. We don't, but it'd be nice to have it.
Who says we don't? No, you're right. Any last words on this topic? Did we address everything?
I just want to thank Chris for being here. I mean, it was nice for him to jump on with us. I know he's a very busy man. So thanks, Chris.
Thank you, Chris.
Thank you very much.
We'll see you next time. Or you say it, Jake. Oh, I say it. I open this video. We will see you next time. Bye-bye.
Bye.